Hey everyone, this is episode 67 of Noodle Time. Welcome back. This is going to be a very special episode. It's not going to be like your usual Noodle Time, but just like a very special Noodle Time this time in the off season, at least for the Dash. But here with me as always is going to be OSG. How's it going, sir?
What's up, man? What's up? Ready for this one? Excited for this one. Special night.
No, yeah. And we're just happy over here because we're bringing in a special guest to discuss a little bit about the Dash this 23 season. And here with us tonight is going to be Theo Lloyd-Hughes. How's it going, sir?
Hello. Thanks so much for having me. It's going all right. If I'm being totally honest, it's been a tough few weeks with my little baby boy just starting daycare and the germs, man.
Yeah.
The germs are tough. What's the opposite of a shout out? What's the opposite of a shout out? A shout in. Shout in to all the germs out there. Please chill out.
Stay away.
If all the germs could chill out for a bit, I'd be much better off. But no, the football's been great. It's been a very chaotic end to the NWSL across the board. Really looking forward to the playoffs this weekend, and yeah, I think it was a tough season for Houston in short, but a bit of excitement at the end there. They kept it going to the last day, so it's not bad.
No, yeah, and if you guys don't know about Theo, he is I would definitely say one of the best sources when it comes to women's soccer in the United States and also abroad. I've been following him for a long time now, and I'm just impressed by not just how he covers NWSL, but also the Super League back in England, and also even Liga MX. And it's just impressive for me, like not only his coverage, but also I have to appreciate the fact how each of their own leagues have been growing respectively. Not necessarily like really fast, but how well like women's soccer has been going as a whole, and also because of the Women's World Cup that just happened. And I've also been following your coverage for that. Yeah, even though I've been having issues with like my sleep schedule, trying to catch the Nigeria games. I feel like it's been a very entertaining World Cup, and for me, and also some of my friends that also like to watch soccer as a neutral, have been catching a lot of games despite the time difference. But that's also one of the things I want to ask before we started. Like, how was your experience in the World Cup, just being in Australia and New Zealand, and just trying to sink everything in?
Yeah, it was really beautiful, and yeah, you mention it. It was great to be on the right time zone. That was probably one of the strangest things. The day I landed, there was a game that night, and it was crazy just waiting all day for the game. I'd got so used to being up at 3, 4, 5, 6 in the morning to watch the games that there you are, prime time. Kickoff is 7 o'clock at night. But beyond just that, it was really magical. I think, for anyone listening, for you too, men's or women's, but particularly the women's right now with the way the game is going, I really recommend trying to get to a World Cup. And I suppose, Houston in 2026 will be a good chance. But there is nothing quite like that feeling that the whole world is in one place, and that the biggest thing that is happening in the world is sort of in the city you're in. And I just think that was really magical, especially with the way the women's game is and where those stories are. And it was just so magical to feel like the whole world was in one place, and these games that had such reverberations around the whole world were kind of happening there, and all these people were getting to witness them. So that was a really amazing feeling. And then yeah, you have all the culture of the people traveling and the players and the fans and the press, and then you have the culture of the hosts as well. And we were really lucky that Australia got so far. So there was this amazing hunger to watch the Matildas and hunger for football, for soccer, that was sort of happening in real time, like a snowball effect, like an avalanche. It was just growing and growing every day that I was there. It felt like the hunger for the sport and for the Matildas, for the Aussie women, got bigger and bigger. And so that was amazing to witness, yeah, there's nothing quite like it. And like I said, you got to try and get out to a World Cup wherever you are, watching, listening to this. And yeah, obviously with the men's, you're going to have the US in a couple of years. So that'll be really exciting.
Well, where is 2027 going to be? Or have they announced?
That's the big question. They've not announced. Next May, they've said when the announcement will be made, next May. So The US and Mexico, I think, are going to maybe put forward a co-bid, as well as South America. I think we're expecting Chile, Argentina, or Brazil, I think. TBD 2027. Start putting money away now, wherever it is, and hopefully maybe it's in the US, and that'll make it a slightly smaller trip.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, definitely. And I've been pulling for that bid for the US to host it again, because just doing back-to-back World Cups like 2026 and 2027 is just going to be insane. And I know for a fact that Houston, or at least Dallas, are going to be hosting games for sure.
Yeah, now it's a 32-team tournament for the women. I think that definitely opens up more potential for host cities, and obviously you've got more teams, right? I think it's 48 teams for the 2026 World Cup. Yeah, so that's kind of mad. Yep. So that obviously means it is kind of a bumper tournament in 2026, and maybe there'll be less host cities, but like you said, there'll definitely be at least one Texas City in 2027 or 2031 whenever the US get the women's.
Back-to-back World Cups. I'm looking forward to it. Let's just
we'll see.
Go ahead and sign it.
Yep. No, but yeah, and with that conversation, let's get into like the main topic, just being about the Dash. Obviously, disappointed coming out of the last game of the season, although had very high hopes for Sal Loudon to turn things around. But obviously, it's kind of just like unfair to discuss like how we got here without adding context. And there's been a lot that happened over the season that we have to really bring out. And OSG and I, for like, especially during the summer, like it's been very painful for us, especially when they went through that stretch of 3 months without winning a league game. I feel like it was one of the things that definitely broke us down for sure. But at the same time, like, you just have to consider the fact during Sam Lady's tenure that decisions were made that obviously there were silver linings behind it for sure, but at the same time, it definitely costed us just being in the position that we were at when it came to decision day in NWSL. And I guess like the first thing I want to ask when it comes to the Dash is like, when before the season started, when Sam Lady was getting like settled to start his first season with the Dash, like how did you see the Dash performing back then? Not necessarily like try to figure out if you were close to your prediction as to where we're at right now, but how do you see the Dash back in like February or March?
Yeah, I was going through over some of my predictions this week because obviously the season ended and I wanted to see how accurate I was. And I had the Dash finishing 5th, which maybe now looks a bit hopeful, but if they'd beaten Angel City and beaten Orlando Pride, they probably would have finished maybe even 4th. Or if they'd drawn one of those games and won one of those games, 4 points here, 5 points there. I know it doesn't sound like a lot. Maybe it sounds like a lot for some people, but very quick. The NWSL table is very squished together. So I don't. Even though the Dash, I guess, finished 10th, which doesn't sound very good. My prediction of 5th didn't sound that crazy. If you squint. But I think that's where I saw them for the squad they have. I think you think back to a year where Juan was able to take them and where they did very well last year with Ebony coming in and just really hitting the ground running. I think there were probably aspects of that run that were not going to be able to be replicated. But I think the NWSL remains a very, very open league. And with Maria Sanchez and Diana Ordonez not going to the World Cup, I think, and Ebony Salmon not going to the World Cup, the Dash missed a trick in a way. Having some of the best players available during the summer when other teams went on really bad runs, the Dash also happened to go on a bad run, which I think was their downfall, because the Dash's bad run, which, for those that don't know, I believe it was 8 games without a win, right? And maybe 5 losses, 5 draws, 3 losses in that run. There's a lot of bad runs in the NWSL. San Diego Wave, who won the Shield, went 5 games without a win. 4 losses, 1 draw, around the same time in the summer, actually. The Courage, who just clinched the playoffs, are currently on a 7-game. Well, they just ended, a 7-game winless run by beating Spirit on the last day of the season. So a lot of NWSL teams have bad runs, is what I'm trying to say here. In that, like, the league is close, the league is chaotic. These teams are very, very even. There's not a lot in it. So to go on one bad run is one thing, but I think for the Dash, what that was sort of their moment to maybe get ahead is when other teams were going on these bad runs, or other teams were missing players, and that's when they happened to also kind of drop down. And then furthermore, with those 3 players, Maria, Ebony, and Diana, they just weren't good enough on the ball. They weren't creative enough. And maybe that's not their fault. Maybe it's the system. Maybe it's Sam. Maybe it's a little bit of them. Maybe it's a little bit of Sam. It wasn't working at the end of the day. And for a team that last year broke a club record for goals scored, to then have this season this year with this crazy low amount of goals, which I believe finished being 17 goals scored in 22 games.
16.
16. Thank you, OSG. That is unacceptable at the end of the day. You can't go anywhere in football if you're not scoring at least 1 goal a game. And even if you're scoring 1 goal a game, so that would be 22. You would have to have this really, really good defense, which, to be fair, the Dash did this year. That's the crazy thing. The best defense ever in the NWSL is 17 goals conceded in a season. They had 18 goals conceded this season. So you're looking at almost record-breaking defense. But if you have, record-breaking for the wrong reasons attack, you're never going to get anywhere. So players like Maria, Diana have to shoulder the blame. Sam Lady has to shoulder the blame. They weren't good enough going forward. And I think that's what it comes down to at the end of the day is a mixture of cohesion, a mixture of strategy, a mixture of personal performance. And like I said, I think the opportunity was for them to at least get to the playoffs, maybe not go as well as they did last year, but I definitely would have predicted them to be in top 5. Andres, OSG, I don't know if you had bigger aspirations or similar aspirations, that you definitely felt like they were a playoff team. Like, I don't think the Dash were necessarily like the best team in the league, but I definitely had them in the conversation.
We kind of had same season aspiration. Made the playoffs. Was expecting to make the playoffs. We were high on Sam Lady coming in. You brought in Ordonez. Like you said, you had Salmon and Sanchez. There were some other players that were brought in probably at a later times, but it was hopeful here in Dash City. And a couple numbers away, we were 4-3-4, which was 15 points and 4th in the league overall on the road. But at home, 2 wins, and we accumulated 11 points, and it was the worst in the league. And that number, and then like you said, the attack. Next closest was 25 goals in the league, and we only scored 16. So, going back to Lady, when Foxtrot were high on Lady, we thought it was a good hire. He had a good resume, of course. He never been a head coach, but he's been an interim, and he took over OL Reign there for I think a partial season. But we were high on him, and then as the season moved on, we kind of felt he was more of a stubborn coach, and his system was his system, and he wasn't willing to adjust. Players, we thought some players could have been moved around, i.e. Ordonez and Salmon could have been switched at times. So it was just kind of frustrating, and just Sam Lady just started getting on our nerves like a lot, and we kind of, or me, I'll speak for myself. I put a lot of blame on Lady and his system. Just comparing from what we had last season to this season, it just felt like there's just something was just keeping us from being as forefront in the attack as we were the previous year. And I thought it was Lady just being stubborn with the system and not making adjustments and sticking to his ways. And it bit him in the butt in the end, and he lost his job for it. I don't know how you felt what Lady did for the season, or Andreas, your take on Lady as well.
No, yeah, and when it comes to Sam Lady, like one of the things I have to give a lot of credit was establishing that ironclad defense we got this year, and it's just really difficult for me to defend him after to see how this season went. But at the same time, it's really difficult not to give him credit just for the fact that it was the best defensive team in the league, as that's been already mentioned. But going without a win in 3 months in league play is definitely something. And even though, like Theo just mentioned, that it's the league is very chaotic, and there can be like a lot of winless runs, like that, those type of situations can definitely set you back. And this situation specifically, I felt like it definitely set the dash back way back for them to to not just recover, but rather like string those consistent results to make it up top. And the end of it all being this chaotic, it can definitely be um one month you can just be as bad, but the other months you can just win every single game, or the next two months. And Houston could have been in that situation, but at the same time, OSG mentioned it best, is the fact that he felt stubborn at times, and for me, like we had to make a call, like, eventually to let him go. But yeah, I like to hear what Theo has to say about it, because just getting his input as well when it comes to like all the teams, not just Dash, is very helpful, honestly.
Yeah, something which sticks out to me. I don't really know what I mean by this point, but this is another stat that you might be interested to hear. The Dash only lost one game this year by more than one goal, which is crazy. So they were in every game. Like, that's what's so crazy about. And you know, that winless run you're talking about, 5 draws in that run, 3-1-1s, 2-0-0s, and then all the defeats are 1-0. So it's like, it's such a weird season. And when you add the cancelled game against North Carolina, right? So they had one game where they couldn't even finish the game. It got ended at halftime. Then they had 3 games where they had to play with 10 players. So that immediately changes your game strategy. The other team has more of the ball. You're playing for the draw, essentially. And they did draw 2 of those games. They lost one of those games 1-0. So you basically have 4 games where the Dash either couldn't finish the game or couldn't finish the game how they wanted to structurally as a team. So like, you basically have 4 games, which is like nearly a quarter of the season, about 35% of the season. Sorry, no, nearly about 20% of the season. You have 20% of the season where you basically throw out all the strategy and all the things that you can prepare for. You basically have 20% of the season where the games are like not at all how you'd imagine. And I think you add that to then all these close games where like things almost didn't go right way. And I think it's my overall point is, it's just such a hard season to analyze, because there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of very, very small margins. And I think it's clear that Leite, kind of on that note, was able to get these players working hard. I think the thing you have to credit Leite for, and I think you saw it, you know, even in his final game, which was a 1-0 defeat to San Diego, where Michel Alozier got sent off, is that the players just like kind of hustled under him, and they didn't really, like, you know, when people often say like, oh, the manager's lost the dressing room or whatever, like I think the players clearly didn't get whatever strategy, whatever system Leite wanted them to do, but they didn't quit on him. And I think that is a credit. And you kind of like, you know, I've been talking to people post Leite about like how they felt about him, and you know, the players definitely got on with him and they really respected him, but it just didn't work for whatever reason. And I do think, to his credit and to the players' credit, the effort levels were there to some extent. You know, they worked really hard. But going back to his system, or, you know, what OSG is calling his stubbornness, I actually think for me, what Leite struggled to do was find, you know, the right system for his players, particularly Ebony, Maria, and Diana. And he struggled to find the right positions to play them in. And in the same way that you could say he was stubborn, I also think he was indecisive. And I think that is really hard for players when you're low on confidence, when you're not playing well, and you're changing formations mid-game, you're changing formations game to game. You're not necessarily being played the same way that the former coach was, or the coaches you've had at other clubs. You know, Diana and Ebony come off 11, 12 goal seasons, and here they are having to try and figure out how to play with each other. They don't know if they're the number one choice. They're used to being the number one striker. You know, this isn't really necessarily Sam Leite's fault, or their fault, but they've all kind of inherited this, monkey on their back that very quickly 5-6 games into the season when things don't start going well. And I almost think Sam's problem was he never quite diagnosed. He never quite diagnosed his team. He never quite diagnosed the issue. And, he had a whole preseason. He had, nearly the entire season, 18 games to do it. And I think at the end of the day was probably the right decision to get rid of him, because that's enough time with that group of players to try and make it work, and it didn't work. And I think Sam's a great coach. I think he's a great guy, and I think he gave it a really good shot. And like I said, I think to his credit, his training methods and his leadership was clearly kind of working, but the system, this group of players, the way he was asking them to play wasn't. And I almost don't really have the answer to why that was. Why you couldn't figure out the right positions to put these players in, the right combinations to put these players in. I think, you saw Sarah Loudon the minute she came in, she changed it up and she committed to the 3-5-2 and she put Maria in a different position. And interestingly, Diana kind of at the end there, gets that big header at Louisville, but then she doesn't start the next 2 games. We see Michelle Alozier up front as a 9, something that Sam hadn't really tried yet. So, even Loudon comes in at the end there and there's more ideas being put on the canvas. And obviously you've got Andressa as well, who didn't really get to play much under Lady. So it feels like, long story short, that I think the big issue with the Dash this year was there was almost too many ideas. There was too many moving parts. There's too many ways to play, too many ideas. And that struggled to build a structure, a reliable system or formation where these players could come in and they knew how they wanted to play. They knew how they wanted to beat teams. They knew how they wanted to score goals. I don't think this Dash team ever found its rhythm. And like I said, some of that is bad luck. If you play games with 10 players, you don't get time to establish that rhythm. If games are cancelled because of a storm, you don't get those 45 minutes back. But I think there were other times where this Dash team needed to dominate and be its best self and put the personality out there and execute the plan. And if it was Laty's plan, it wasn't working. And so that's what it comes down to for me.
Well, and a little perspective on Lady, as we talk about the defense was so stellar the entire year. A couple of stats that kind of stood out to me after going back and reviewing, and the defense wasn't giving up goals, but we knew they were giving up a ton of shots at the same time, and that's where our superhero Jane Campbell comes in with the 8 clean sheets, making save after save to save the friggin' games. Only 9 clean sheets was the top of the league, so 1 behind. But here's some numbers that kind of threw out. Save percentage was 83.6, first in the league. But saves per 90, which was the most in the entire league, was 4.3 saves per game. So she's taking an abundance of shots at the same time. And, credit to the defense. They're working hard and they're getting in the way and making those shots hard. But, I mean, you go back and you look at all of Jane's saves. You can say that Jane made some excellent saves and kept the Dash in the games where it easily could have been a 2-0, a 2-1, a 3-1, 3-0 game, and then all hopes of the glory are out the friggin' window. It's so I think Jane Campbell, without her, this could have been maybe the worst season in history for the Dash, with the offense being oblivious and invisible. So it's I just looking at Lady, and I guess he just lost it and couldn't figure it out, like you said, and just not willing to make changes. Like you said, up top with Ordonez and Salmon, he never put Salmon as a striker. He always kept Ordonez as a striker. Never played around with that and tried something different.
I thought it was very telling that in his last game he plays Michelle Alozier as a right back in defence. Mm-hmm. And then she gets sent off. She does the suspension, and then Loudon puts her as a number 9. I was, that just goes to show you that there's just so many, and it's the beauty of football. There's so many different ways to play players, but it goes to show you that, even right at the end of the season, the Dash are just different ideas. You know what I mean?
And one more note on that also speaks to how much did he intake from his coaching staff at the same time. If Sarah Loudon making so many different changes, is he listening to his staff and incorporating what they have to say at the same time, especially for Loudon, who's been here for 7-8 years?
Yeah, I also think, I don't know, I think Loudon had carte blanche. I think she was there to try and win games and to try and be explosive. And I think she was pushing people out of their comfort zones. But I also think, we all watched the World Cup. We've all seen Michelle Lozier. Michelle Lozier was playing very well as a winger originally under Sam. She was kind of more in the midfield. I think, at that point in the season, it was probably go time to push her forward. And it's just ironic that he was in defense in her final game. But I like your point about Jane. Andres, goalkeeper of the year, Jane Campbell.
Goalkeeper of the year.
Yeah, goalkeeper of the year. Yeah. I don't know if you revisited this before coming in, but like OSG and I were just like in the hate Jane Campbell train to start the season, just coming out of last year, because we thought like last year it was like, probably the worst season for the Dash she ever had, and she comes in this year, and I keep saying it because it's true. Like she won games for the Dash this year, not all of them, but like some of them were won thanks to her, and just the stats that OSU just dropped were just incredible. And to be honest, like it's not really like a matter of conversation, like to see who was like the best player for the team, because it was definitely Jane Campbell, and it's just like hats off to her, really. Just to give a lot of credit for how she improved, not just that, but also how massive she has been for Houston this year.
Yeah, and she's a big personality behind the scenes as well. She puts a lot of work in on the training ground. She's a big note keeper. They kind of call her the note keeper. She keeps a little book and she like writes down every meeting, and she kind of like calls in on people on like what they said and how they said it, and like kind of she's a bit of a fat keeper for the team as well. So I know she's very well liked in the dressing room and is a real leader on that team. And I think, like you said, when maybe she hasn't been playing so well, she's had to kind of lean on those other attributes of what she brings in behind the scenes. And so I think it's big for her to be able to do it on the pitch this year, and like OSG said, kind of keep the Dash in games and maybe make this season look a bit better. I think she's got a really good case for probably being the Dash player of the year, and I think there's a big case that she wins NWSL goalkeeper of the year as well. And I do want to give some love to Caprice Didasco, who was right there alongside her, played almost every single minute this year, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Again, really solid, saves on the line, puts her body on the line, gives everything. But I also think she's a really talented player with the ball at her feet. And going back to Lady or what didn't work, I think she's got a great cross on her, and she gets forward, she gets up and down the line. She has so much energy. And I think, in a way, the Dash haven't taken full advantage of her time in Houston on the attack and using her as an attacking fullback. I think that will probably be one of the biggest disappointments of her time in Houston, that she didn't get more assists, didn't get more goals. She's a free agent, and there's a good chance she leaves this summer. So. But yeah, good season for Caprice Didasco as well.
So a couple other, specific players on the team with in this speed time with Lady. So I'll kind of put them both together and let you answer. But Deanna Ordonez, the season she had in her rookie season for North Carolina, and then coming here and the season she had here, which is complete the opposite and complete different. How do you know she was utilized the same? And then Salmon. Salmon obviously not utilized. I think you mentioned this earlier, where she played in the proper position at the same time, and then for Salmon, was it Lady who just gave up on her, or did Salmon give up on Lady, and that's the reason why she decided to go overseas, or did overseas come call and say, hey, we want you really bad, or so. Kind of curious as to those two, because that was what was frustrating up top for us big time. And, Maria not getting to push up as far to get those crosses in. You see what kind of special player she is on the attack. So we felt like Deanna was misused, and we felt like Salmon was misused, and both of those come on Lady for the most part. Obviously, Sarah didn't use Deanna Ordonez, and then she didn't have Salmon at her helm to use either.
Right. Yeah. I mean, on Salmon first, like, I don't think anyone quit on Lady. I think Salmon and Diana, for whatever reason, struggled to play with each other. And that could be their style of play. Like the two just didn't collaborate very well. It could be the way Lady had them playing. for the most part, we saw a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 with Salmon often on in wide positions. Diana was allowed to be the number 9, and then Salmon would get pushed out wide. We saw a few 3-5-2s where they would play together, but often they would play like side by side. And I think something maybe which would have been cool to see, which we never really saw, would have been sort of having Diana as like a central 10 and then Salmon running off her as a 9, like a little and large. You almost knock it up to Diana, she tries to knock the header on, and then you've got Salmon running in behind the defense. It felt like we never saw that. That was something I always thought they could have tried. But yeah, we saw the chopping and change. I think back to the game against Portland at home in May, where Diana Ordonez actually gets COVID and gets out of the team. And in that game, you saw a 4-2-3-1 where Ebony Salmon was allowed to be the number 9, and she scores the winning goal. And you get a little bit more balance to the team, where you have Michelle Alozier on the right wing, Maria Sanchez on the left wing, and Ebony Salmon has a lot more space to run into because she's not so worried about there being another centre forward like Diana taking up her spaces. And so it's almost like you've got too much of a good thing, right, when you have two peak players that want to play number 9. So again, I don't think Leite really discovered the best way to play his team. I don't think he discovered which one of them is the true number 1. And obviously, in an ideal world, you can use them both. It doesn't have to be a true number 1. But maybe with forwards, especially younger forwards, they're both 22. They want to play. They want to play every game. They need more rhythm to build up their form, to build up their fire, like they did in 2022. So when you're in and out of the team each week, it's really, really hard to find your feet as a 22-year-old player at the NWSL. So I think that's kind of the problem there. In regards to Salmon leaving, she was ready to go home. She really wants to be back in an England team. Her England relationships or her, because her form dropped off, her ability to get in the England team dropped off, and so that became her number 1 thing. And for her to achieve that, she wanted to go back to the WSL. Her contract was also up at the end of the year, so Alex Singer felt like it was a great time to cash in. They got offers, they got good offers, and it was the smartest thing to do for the club, basically. At that point, with playoffs looking not as exciting, Alex Singer essentially, I don't know how much they got for her, but in her words, she told me that they got as much as they paid for her, which was $190,000 from Aston Villa. Suppose I don't know the exact fee, but she's pretty confident she got almost all that money back. So that was a business move in regards to Ebony. Ebony was ready to go. She was ready to go at the end of her contract in December, or she would go in August when she did. So it was basically leave for free in December or take the money now. In regards to Diana, I think Leite just didn't really figure out the right way to play with her. I think Leite wanted to play a lot of long ball football, get those crosses into her, use wide areas, but I think it became really predictable. I think teams were able to defend deep and know exactly how Diana was going to play. They needed to develop more dimensions to their game, or they needed to develop decoys to take play pressure away from Diana so that she could get into those spaces, and they never really were able to do that. I think sometimes the problem, there was almost too much pressure on Maria Sanchez to generate chances on her own, and that became an issue. I think when you do play a 4-3-3 and you play Maria Sanchez right in the top of the left wing position, she almost becomes a better shooting forward, where she can cut in, right, and then she's, when she receives the ball, she's further up, she's already in the final third, and then she cuts in and shoots. And I think that's what she did better under Sam Leite. When you saw maybe in Loudon's system, she's a little bit further back in a 3-5-2. She's almost more like a crossing forward, and she's more like a chance creator. And I think we never really saw enough of Maria Sanchez being a chance creator, even though she had a better goal scoring this season than she did last season. I think Leite never really figured out the right place to play her in regards to putting it on a plate for Diana Ordonez. But I think at the end of the day, I also think you can put a bit of responsibility on the players as well. Even if the system was working, even if Leite couldn't make his mind up about who was going to start week to week, at the end of the day, these players are good enough to produce more than 2 goals for Diana. I think, Maria, even though she had a good year, I believe she's a very, very good player in this league. I think her standards should be higher. So I think at the end of the day, these players can put a little bit of blame on themselves for them not reaching their potential. They're not executing as well as the game plan. They weren't able the system they had in place wasn't able to find space for Diana in and around the box.
No, yeah, and I think like the general consensus when it comes to how Sam Lady's tenure ended was the fact that like all of our attacking weapons were just like underutilized, and obviously we had Ebony Salmon coming in like in really good form into 2023, and also bringing in Diana Ordonez, probably one of the, I want to say like the best, but also like one of the most exciting prospects that the league has. It definitely set expectations, at least for me, because I was very hopeful of all the pieces that we had up front, and to end up the season like this, as we talked earlier, like just scoring a really mediocre amount of goals that you were supposed to score, it was definitely concerning. And not to like discredit Ebony Salmon and her decision to leave. Definitely, that's something personal, and I respect it. And at the end of the day, it was just like a matter of business for the Dash that they had to take care of. And yeah, I'm glad that she got her wish, and I definitely wish her the best. But yeah, just the way that this season turned out, especially how all these players, not just like offensively but defensively speaking, just to work as a unit, like it didn't work itself out, or rather be consistent in the long run. And obviously, like Sarah Loudon did her thing, and it did work to an extent, but obviously it was, I don't like to say it was already too late, like into the season, but there was there wasn't so much that she could do to like fix things, even though she had like I felt like she had a pretty good formula. But I guess like the last thing I wanted to ask is just like, obviously we had like a handful of silver linings to like take into consideration for 2024, and obviously Jane Campbell being one of them, but also just the foundation that we have defensively and the piece that we have remaining, and obviously a lot of decisions to be done in the offseason when it comes to signings and who we have to let go, and we're trying to like bring back in from last year. And what do you feel like are those like pieces, or rather uh, plans that we have to like keep from this year moving on to 2024?
I mean, I think the big two are Maria Sanchez and Caprice Didasco, who are both out of contract. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. They're both fantastic players who will have a lot of offers, and both coming off good seasons. Like I said, I think Maria has an even higher ceiling. Caprice had a very, very good ceiling season by her standards, but I think Maria can do even more than she did this year, and she still broke her record for goals in a single NWSL season. But those are the big two. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think Alex Singer is probably trying to do everything she can to retain them, but she's got to figure out a salary cap. She's got to figure out the length of their contracts. You know, Caprice is an aging player in this league, although I think looking at her this year, I think she's got a lot left in the tank, but she is going to be 31. Maria's in the prime of her career, has a very, very big media spotlight, marketing appeal. I think she'll have so many offers, both in this country and abroad. I think the club's going to really struggle to hold on to her. And it'll be really interesting to see if they do, and what that maybe does to other moves they intend to make. We've also got 2 new teams coming into the league next year, so we've got an expansion draft. So 2 players on the Dash roster are probably going to end up getting taken by Bay FC in California and Utah Royals in Salt Lake City. So there's that to contend with. There's a lot of questions, I think, on this roster right now. Like I said, you know, the biggest ones being Maria and Caprice. And I think you've got to figure out, you know, what you're going to do with the young players. I think if we're going to put some blame on Alex Singer, who is the general manager, and will have a big decision to make in these next few weeks when she confirms the new coach. The NWSL draft was not a big success for the Dash this year. You look around the league and other teams had much more success. We didn't see anything of Jalissa Harris. We saw a little bit of Maddie DeCiriano, but almost nothing. Lindsay Jennings, you know, barely made the team. Sophie Hurst actually looked really, really good the first half of the season, and she kind of disappeared. So you look at all those draft picks, you know, they didn't really amass for much at all. And I think that's got to fall on Alex Singer as a roster builder. You know, this team isn't getting any younger. There is a very, very good core in place, but we haven't really seen much improvement through the draft. Ordonez is only 22, so I'm not worried about her at all. She's a huge talent. She will probably be more. There'll be more pressure on her to perform next year, but I think she can take it. But yeah, I think the Dash will have some big moves to make, whether that is retaining big contracts or replacing them. The good news is, I think they signed 2 really good international players mid-season, I think, who have gone under the radar. Andressa, obviously from Brazil, I think is looking like a really, really good player, and will maybe have more responsibility put on her if Maria leaves. But I think, in a way, she was able to do something which was missing under Leite. And like I said, it's unlucky for Leite. They didn't really get enough time with her, but she's able to mix the midfield and the attack. And when we do talk about Diana not working this year, I think so much of that is because there was almost not enough connection between the midfield players and the attackers. And Andressa really looks like she can kind of thread the needle and be a link. And I think, she's got another year on her contract. She'll be a big one for this team in 2024. And I think she looks really, really suited to the NWSL. And those last 4 games under Loudon, you really kind of saw her come into her own as a key part of this team. So Andressa is going to be one to watch. And I think it's cool that Alex Singer got that business done early. And the other one is, who I think isn't actually quite under contract. She has an option, but she hasn't signed it yet, is the Austrian defender, Sarah Puntigam, who's the captain of Austria, really, really experienced player coming off a very, very good Frankfurt team who are really kind of turning heads in Germany. She seems to be a really, really good player who has a lot of experience. And I think this Dash team has experience front to back. You've got Jane, you've got Sophie Schmidt, who's, played 1 million games for Canada, who's a fantastic player. Katie Lind is an amazing leader. The team's not short on leaders, so adding Sarah to the mix, it feels like maybe it wasn't essential, but I think down the back stretch of the season, you just saw that she really had a good head on her shoulders and adds a lot in the dressing room and really is a very, very good professional. So even if she doesn't maybe play every game, I think it's really good they've managed to add a little bit more experience with Sarah as well. So, they've done a bit of business early, but I think if Maria and Caprice move on, there's going to be 2 big holes in this team, and there's going to be a lot of moves to make over the off season. And like I said, they've got to start doing better in the draft.
I still have I know we're running some time here, but I've still got a few questions to go. So I kind of want to fire them at you, and
Fire.
You don't have to give a big long answer, because I've got like 4 or 5 questions here that I kind of want to ask, and I'm not sure if Foxtrot has anything left over. But you were mentioning the free agents, Sanchez and Didasco, obviously the biggest 2, and then you have another restricted, Joelle Anderson. Do you see her fitting into the mold for next season? I know we don't have a coach yet, and we don't know what system or anything we're going to be running, but Joelle Anderson, she was kind of mixed reviews this season from fans.
I think, considering it, this is Alex Singer's team to some extent, it doesn't really matter if the coach is in yet.
Okay.
And I think there's a good chance they could move on from Joelle.
Vigiano, does she still?
I really like Mr. Vigiano. I think she's underrated, and I think the fact that Sarah Loudon brought her back into the team, even though she wasn't playing under Sam Leite, kind of speaks to what you were saying a little bit about, different coaches having different opinions, because she was really successful under Juan last year and under Sarah. She played almost every game in 2022. And then you saw in those last 4 games, she comes back into the team, and a bit like Andressa, I just think she brings so much more on the ball life to this team, threading the midfield and the attack and being box to box. I think I would definitely re-sign Vigi. I think she'll have a lot of offers because I think she's put on some really good tape and she's been around the league a bit now. This is her first free agency. I could see her taking some calls, seeing what else is out there. But I would re-sign her. But Joelle and Vigi are good examples of they both were here before Alex Singer arrived. And I think you got to remember, if this is Alex Singer's team, players that were here when she arrived, she could take him or leave him. So I don't know. Part of me feels like Vigi might go.
Well, like you said, Vigi, I mean, she's going to take some offers, so she's probably going to take a better offer. But Sarah Loudon used her, and she looked very well in the last few games there, too. So that's something Alex Singer probably saw. But moving on, Chapman, who took personal leave, and we just found out recently that she is pregnant. She is also 34-year-old. She's free agent. So chances are she's probably going to retire. Do you see her sticking around, or any take on Chapman?
I think she will stick around.
Nice. Okay. Hopefully it's with the team. It was a left back that was needed right there, and get through a pregnancy, get that baby going, and the stay at home dad could work out for her. And another one that's a fan favorite, but hasn't got a lot of time in the past 2 years. One this year because of injury is Shea Groom. She's obviously a free agent, and that's going to be a tough one with her injury from this year and injury from last year, and not getting much playing time as well last year. So what do we do with Shea Groom?
I think Dash fans might have to prepare for an emotional goodbye for Shea Groom, which will be really hard. I mean, there's a good chance maybe she gets another contract. She's really, really well liked at the club. But yeah, I think this could be the end of her time in Houston.
Yeah, the injury might get in the way of that, and re-signing her. You were talking about Puntingham, and being a really good player and a good addition to the team. Where do you see her playing for us? Even like I said, I know it's hard, and Alex Singer's team, and we don't know who the coach is going to be. We used her as CDM at times under Lady, and then Sarah used her as a left back. I believe she's been a center back for Austria. You're not replacing Katie Lynn. They were using Jacobs. You still have Prysock back there. Where do you see her fitting in with this roster of players that we have?
Yeah, I mean, I think her real value is that she kind of offers a little bit of everything. I think the vibe I got from her profile was that she would be more of a defensive midfielder, as more of a holding midfielder. But it seems like, like you saw, Sarah went to the 3-5-2. She likes her on the left side of the centre back three, and she's a left-footed player. It kind of gives you a different, a balance to the defence where you can shift the ball wide a little bit quicker when you've got a left-footed player there. So I think the answer is all of the above. I think, wherever she can slot in, like I said, I think she offers experience. She's a captain for a national team. She's got a lot of experience. She's played in a team that really managed to change the culture and become a big winning team in Germany. And I think she offers a lot kind of mentally and like you said, she offers a lot of versatility wise. I don't think she's necessarily going to be a starter next season, or if she's not, that's okay. But I think she can come in and offer a little bit of everything.
That's good. Good to hear. She's going to be very helpful. So we did have a fan question. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's her value. She can do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, because we talked about it and watching her the last two games, is like wasn't very sure that we liked her playing that left side, outside back, even though it was only three. But of course, she had Jacobs in the middle over Lind for some reason, which kind of baffled us at the same time. I didn't understand that move. So I liked her better as a CDM. And one of our fans did ask a question about the Dash midfield. Is it time to rebuild? You're obviously still going to have Schmidt. Vigiano's a free agent. You brought in Alves to kind of play a cam, an attacking midfielder. You've got Puntingham in there. Groom will most likely be gone. So there's options there. But is it kind of time for the midfield to be rebuilt? Maybe build it around Schmidt.
I mean, I think Sophie Schmidt's still the heartbeat, so I think you kind of build around Sophie Schmidt. Like I said, I think if you hang on to Vigi, you've got a partner there. I'm not sure they will, but I think hypothetically you could keep Schmidt and Vigi and run them back for 2024. I definitely think Sophie Schmidt is still really important to this team, so I don't think you're totally rebuilding the midfield. And we did see flashes from Sophie Hurst. So I think you could see her a year older as a rookie, in her second year, stepping up a little bit more next year. But yeah, I definitely think a number 8, a centre mid, a ball, the kind of profile of Vigi is exactly the kind of player they'll want to get in especially if Vigi leaves, Shea Groom leaves. You've got a lot of bodies to fill, let alone probably getting quite a good starting caliber player to come and want to get on the ball and make tackles in the midfield. Absolutely. I think Puntagam, like we were just talking about, she's a really, really good squad player. She's a great head on her shoulders. She can fill in there, but I don't know if they want her as the starting centre mid, defensive mid. I think they're going to want to bring someone in. Like I said, unless they plan on keeping Vigi and Shea Groom, but I think both those players will probably leave. Is my guess, just a guess, and they'll want to bring someone in either through the draft or make a signing there. And going back to Natalie Jacobs, I think she got another year on a contract, but I think they're going to want to bring in another centre back as well. I thought we'd see more of Jalissa Harris, the rookie, this year. I've been kind of surprised that she's been not used at all, and there's got to be more upgrades made at centre back. I think that the team is too thin there.
All right, so I guess just kill me real quick since you just kind of led into that. And I kind of like Price Hawk, and I like how Price Hawk plays, and I thought she was a better option for Jacobs over Jacobs at center back. Yeah, and I didn't understand why, but so it's it sucked for me as a fan, but Price Hawk is just did she do something that I'm missing out there to be deep sixth off the center back role there and not even get any playing time there towards the end?
I don't know anything about it. I can only see what I see on the pitch. I believe it's just a football preference thing. Leite really liked Natalie Jacobs. He felt like she offered the team more a chance to win than Price Hawk. And to be fair, you look at some of the defensive numbers, they were really good. So who am I? Who are we to say that we thought, Ali Price Hawk put in a lot of good years for Houston before Jacobs came around? I don't really know why Ali Price Hawk lost her place, but like the team was defending well. So what can you say, really? I think something which no Houston defenders have excelled at is being really good on the ball as a defender. Usually you get a lot of ball playing from the fullbacks, people like Caprice Didasco, but we haven't really seen that from Price Hawk or Jacobs. And maybe that's something they might try and bring in, is a centre back who can offer maybe more on the ball.
Understood. All right, so the front office, you kind of mentioned about Singer. I guess we really want to talk about Jessica O'Neill. She's got so much on her plate running both teams in the position she's in. But Alex Singer, is she still getting into the groove of her position? Because I believe this is the first time her getting in that position. Does she still have more work to do, or is she? Because there's some fan perspective that she could do a lot better, and she's making some decisions as in like the player profiles that she's been bringing in. She's bringing in kind of like copycat players that were already existing on the team. So you're not making the changes there that were needed to evolve this team any further.
Yeah, I think evolve is a good word. We haven't really seen this team evolve yet. And that does take time. I think Alex Singer's been in the job a year, and she'll be the first one to say that her job's not over. She hasn't done well enough. She's, I chatted to her about a month ago. We sat down after Leite was fired to kind of talk about everything, and she's her own biggest critic. She wants to be accountable for this team. She wants to put her mark on the team, and I think when they line up with Diana Ordonez up front and Andressa in the midfield and Sarah Puntagam places, you're starting to see the Alex Singer team, if you like. There, a lot of these other players came in with other coaches and GMs. So, yeah, I think her job is not done. She hasn't done a good enough job by her own standards. But I think, like I said, the draft, I think, is a place you can criticize her. But the Ebony Salmon deal was maybe not bad business. It had to be done. And I think the Andressa and Sarah Puntagam moves were quite shrewd. And could offer the team a lot going forward. It'll be really interesting to see what she does next with these free agents. I think it's a really tough free agent class, and I think that's where we're going to see, her have to make a lot of work happen. But I think she's done an okay job, and in a way, it's like we'll see how good she is in a year's time, in the next 6 months. I think it's all to play for, but I think it's too early to judge what she has and what she hasn't done right. As a GM, you can't achieve that much in a year. I think you look at Yael Averbuch-West in Gotham, in New York. She's now 2 years into the job. And I think you get a much better look at what she's managed to do at that team in 2 years. And if you'd said a year ago when Gotham were bottom of the table, what are Gotham like a year into Yael's job? Maybe you would have fired her. So I think you've got to give GMs more time. And I think Alex has done a lot right. I'm sure she's made mistakes. She obviously was the person who hired Sam Leahy. She'll be the person to hire this next coach. She's on the spot, but I think you got to give her time.
Well, and then Gotham hit it on the nose with getting Juan Carlos and making that big adjustment this season. So now Alex Singer probably has the biggest test coming up, is finding the next coach. We've had 5 coaches over the past 2 years, with Sarah Loudon doing the interim twice. And that's kind of unheard of for any team, 5 coaches in 2 years. So the coaching hiring is on. Do you see anybody out there that may be about to lose their job, who is available, free agent, that's not coaching, or someone we can take from overseas to bring in? Is there a name that's kind of mingling around the journalistic world to be a good fit for Houston?
I think Carmelina Moscato would be a name to watch. Formerly the head coach of Tigres, won a championship in Liga MX. She's currently out there looking for a job after she left Tigres. I think she'd be a really interesting name to watch. And I think she's someone who the Dash fans would really fall in love with. And she'd get a lot of great enthusiasm with. She's never coached in the NWSL, which, will be interesting to see how she does. It's a very different league to Mexico. Tigres are a very big team in a league where you can boss some teams and knock some teams out. And the NWSL is not like that. It's week in, week out. Every game you can lose. And it'll be really interesting to see how she would adapt to that. But I'd love to see her get a chance. The Rayadas coach, actually, Eva Espejo, also won a championship there. Really, really well respected. She has just announced she's going to be leaving Monterrey. It'd be interesting to see her get a look. She's a very different type of coach. She wasn't a player. Carmelina was a very successful player with Canada. Eva Espejo is almost more of a GM. She's a little bit more of a kind of analytical type, if you like. I don't know if that would necessarily have the same effect. But yeah, I think those are 2 names to watch. You're obviously going to have Mark Parsons, just got sacked of the Washington Spirit. I think his name will come up. Matt Potter, who did well in KC. Those would be other names to watch as well with NWSL experience.
She has her work cut out for her then. So hopefully those resumes are all on her table and she's looking at them. So, well, I have one last question, and then I'll hand it back over to Fox. Sorry, Fox, for taking up so much of your time here, buddy. But,
I mean, it's all the input we need, man. Like it's amazing.
Yeah, and Theo, thank you for providing all the information that you can provide. In your opinion, we both agreed, like, having your opinion here is just great to have, in a different perspective than just me and him talking back and forth in the episodes throughout the entire season, because we do follow Dynamo Dash and Dose in every episode that we record, and we try to give a good segment speaking on those teams, and we follow them as much as possible every game. We've been doing press credentials for the game, and like you said, Lady, earlier, he's very personable, and it's hard not to like the guy personally. I think something, like you said, something different came on. But so I don't think I have any more team questions, but another question that kind of in the fans' mind is, man, what's up with you and Laura? We miss y'all. Yep. And obviously we need to hear y'all back together, man, on the Dash side of things.
Yeah, I mean, Laura and I both are working people looking for jobs or working where we can. So, we don't work together anymore. I love Laura, and hopefully we'll be on a podcast or drinking a coffee with her in Houston soon, or seeing her around, I was about to say PNC Stadium. What's it called these days?
Shell.
Shell. Hopefully I'll see you around Shell. We're not working together anymore. But that's only because, media companies don't last forever. But, we we love each other, and hopefully we'll be hanging out again soon.
Well, with that last little note, hopefully for next season, or we're going to continue, but hopefully for next season, whatever role you are in, whatever roles Laura in, I hope you still have contact with Laura and still, like you said, have coffee. We'll obviously have to bring you on and throughout the season and more than once in an episode. I know I've seen you on Bio City as well, talking to those guys with the Dash. So you are a fan favorite locally here in Houston, and we look forward to your opinion and obviously we're always replying to some of your tweets and everything, and I love watching Texas soccer for the college scene, and obviously there's only women here. I live in Austin, unfortunately, but so definitely something to look forward to in the future, to where we can just reach out and say, hey, come on on, and give y'all something to talk about. But I do hope y'all find something that y'all can work together, or just find something in your field to get you going and please you and make you happy, and keep you distracted from daycare.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, no, I'm freelance, so I'm taking any gig I can. I'm writing for a bunch of different people and doing whatever. So, it's not easy trying to find jobs to write about soccer, but it's a lot of fun. And like you said, there's plenty of great soccer out there. Very blessed to have lots of good NCAA right now as well. And those young horns, man, they're kicking up a storm. They're not perfect this year, but they're scoring a lot of goals. And Trinity and Lexi, man, can't wait till they're in the pros.
Soon,
college
very
soccer.
soon.
College soccer is definitely its own beast, because I just go through ESPN Plus on any day of the week. Well, during the week, really.
Games.
And there's games going on. I can just flip to one game, and it can just be either nothing going on, or just something crazy, like an insane scoreline. And I find that very entertaining and just very on brand with what college soccer is, really. Not just men's, but also women's, and it's just insane, because I just love watching all kinds of soccer, and yeah, it's just really good to see. And obviously, like OSG just said, we definitely miss you guys being together, Laura, and unfortunately it didn't last that as long as it should have been. But obviously we definitely know for a fact that something's going to happen down the road, that hopefully you guys are reunited one way or another, and either that, or you guys find something that it's very nice for when it comes to creating more content on the road. And just before we head out, Theo, where can some of our listeners can follow you? I know for when it comes to Twitter or X, you post a lot, but what other platforms can they find you as well?
I'm on Instagram, although I don't really post very much. But if you're more on that platform, hit me up at Theo Lloyd-Hughes. But I do a Substack now, just personal writing and podcasting, and that is Squad Depth, squaddepth.substack.com, or type in Squad Depth wherever you get your podcasts, and that's me talking about football. Anything I want to talk about, it's quite loose, country, player, league. So definitely go give that a follow. And yeah, thank you both so much for all you do for Houston football and football in general. Always good to have good people talking about the game. So yeah, lots of love.
No, Theo, thank you so much.
Yeah, Theo, man, thank you for coming on tonight. Big, we were excited whenever you confirmed, and it was a much needed and someone fun to talk to as well at the same time, instead of just me and Foxtrot talking back and forth with each other. It's just, especially the downer of the season we had. So a happy episode, brother. A happy episode.
Good. Yeah. Hopefully it'll be next time. It'll be on a better season.
Definitely.
Nothing but good news. Nothing but good news.
Yeah, that's what I wish in the end. But yeah, thank you guys so much as always for tuning in, and stay noodle, yo.
H is up.